Men of Reddit, what's your creepy girl story? Met a girl online. We chat and set up a date. Date goes fine, she's a little weird. A little sheltered but seems nice. Not much chemistry, but I think that can take some time. So we give it another go, have a second date. Confirm I have no interest in a relationship with this girl on the second date. So we talk it out, no hard feelings, let's be friends. Fast forward 5 years, I'm in my kitchen with some friends getting ready to go out for my birthday dinner when we hear a knock on the door. I go check and no one is there, but there is a box with my name on it. There is a card and some gifts, which would be nice if this girl had ever been to my house before. I had moved since our 2 dates and still have no idea how she found me. Once, an acquaintance added me on FB. When I clicked on her profile, it said she was in a relationship with someone. That someone was a fake account of me with my picture. Our high school basketball team had a female student manager. When we had games at other schools, she would always come up with a reason to need to get something in the locker room when we were showering. But we were so used to her, I guess no one said anything. Coaches probably should have stepped in there. That's not okay. How did she manage to get away with that? Because it's a she. Unfortunately, if it was a man, he'd have been reported. Girl in my dorm. She had a crush on my roommate. My roommate clearly didn't like and told her several times. Things got out of hand and there were times where my roommate would come running back to the room yelling, "Lock the door. Lock the door," and moments later the girl and her friend would try to come barge in without permission. What's creepy is this next part. Apparently one night we accidentally left our room unlocked and she decided to sneak in and play/rub our heads. We didn't wake up, but her roommate told us what she did a couple days later. I haven't seen her in about a year and am quite glad. She rubs your head softer now. This younger girl who I never even spoke to once in high school had a crush on me. I got a note from her in my locker asking if I wanted to go out with her. I had no idea of how to get it back to her. So I just wrote no and taped it to my locker. Then she started following me everywhere. I would try to talk to her, but she would just keep walking away, pretending I wasn't talking to her. This goes on for like 2 years. Then I was hanging out by myself one day around the neighborhood, and she comes walking up with 3 guys who wanted to kick my ass for some dumb unrelated stuff. She somehow found out about it and brought them to me. After an embarrassing scene with me diffusing the situation with these angry gentlemen, they leave, and she finally sits down on the curb right next to me and starts flirting. All I could do was just stare at her enormous bangs with a WTF expression until she got embarrassed and left. I was bored once at a small local festival and didn't want to be there, so I just got a drink and started walking around aimlessly when I noticed a fire brother. The display was interesting and she was pretty hot. When she was on break she went to get a drink and we started talking. She seemed nice. We had a laugh, but her break was up and she resumed her display, so I left her to it and continued to wander around. 5 minutes later security was called to her display. Turns out some crazy girl, whom I had never met before, was following me around the festival and assaulted the fire brother. She had claimed that me and Crazy, were together and fire brother was trying to break us up. I was at a friend's birthday party for her dog. Probably was just an excuse to have people over and get drunk, and another friend, let's call her M, is also there. I had known M for a couple of years, but I only really ever see her a couple of times a year. She is very drunk and also very married. Her husband was also at the same party. At one point in the night, she asks me if I have a girlfriend. I did not. If I'm looking for a girlfriend, where I'd been looking for a girlfriend, etc. Then she says that I had been looking in all the wrong places and that if I wanted a good girl, I should let her know. During this conversation, she also kept trying to grab my hand. And so at one point I made sure to always be holding a handful of mini pretzels in both of my hands as a sort of excuse to not be able to hold hands. I can't hold hands if I'm holding pretzels. Logic. Then finally she says, "I like you. I seldom wipe. I really like you." I'm like, okay. This repeats for a while until she says stop saying okay. It makes me feel like you think I'm bullshitting. Then she keeps following me around the room and keeps trying to make me dance with her until I leave. Her husband was pretty much always in the same room as us, no more than a few feet away, while this was all happening. Thought I was crazy and imagining it all until another friend asked me on the same night as we were leaving, was M trying to hit on you? I started going to a new doctor. The receptionist was cute, so I flirted a bit in a waiting room with other patients around. It was pretty innocent. She reciprocated. I figured it was all in good fun. She escalated a bit. Stuff like scheduling me for days she was there, calling me directly with reminders, etc. Then she went into the records, got my cell number, and started texting me, telling me she wants to meet up. She's not happy with her husband. They never have sex anymore, etc. I noped out as fast as I could. In the US, this is a major crime. If she's treating your records this way, she's not respecting other people's privacy either. It is globally. I was in New Orleans watching some street performers go crazy and a mom came up behind me and fully grabbed both of my ass cheeks. I was 18 and standing next to both of my parents, and she said, "Hey, you remind me of my son," which is probably one of the weirdest things to say in that moment. I wouldn't want to be her kid if she's the kind of mom to full on grab her son's ass like that. In a public place, no less. She befriended my younger sister just to get her to ask her to a sleepover. I woke up in the middle of the night with her laying in bed with me. I was 17 /Osh was 13. Almost this exact thing happened to me, except it was the daytime and the offender was my parents cleaning lady's kid. She was 13 or 14, and I was 18. She would try to wrestle with me every goddamn time she showed up, and every goddamn time I had to pry her off. I found out later that she had told everyone at her school that we had sex, so that was fun. A few months ago, I was walking home from school when this drunk middle-aged woman grabbed me by the arm, wrapped me in a bear hug against a wall, and started grinding on me. I wasn't interested. I had an exam the next morning, and I was just trying to get home. She wouldn't let me go, and she forced my hands onto her breasts and in between her legs. Luckily this was over clothes. She also started punching me for no reason, as well as saying / doing extremely racist Asian stereotypes. I'm Asian. Eventually, I got away, but I've never fully recovered from the experience and I've basically never been able to talk about it with IRL friends. Doubt I ever will. Edit. Oh yeah. There was someone there who walked by who cold helped me. Instead, he turned away and got out of there quickly. He saw that I was uncomfortable and signaling for help, but he did nothing. Not a guy myself, but one I dated had a couple fun stories. One was a girl he got set up with by friends on a blind date. As they went out to dinner, they passed a jewelry store, and she insisted on going in so they could pick out rings for when they get engaged. He paid for dinner and noped right out. The second one went better until he took her back to her place, where she went to the kitchen, pulled a nice big, sharp chef's knife, and told him he was staying the night. He said, "I did what any red-blooded American male would do," agreed, but said I needed to go to the bathroom, where I promptly crawled out the window and never saw her again. During my last year of high school, I would tutor students after school. One day about halfway through the year, a new girl came in and sat next to me. The first thing she said was something along the lines of, "Do you wanna see my birth control?" She had an implant in her arm and showed me where it was. She then felt my arm and told me I was hairy. For the rest of the time she kept prying for personal info like who my friends were and where I lived. I didn't see her in tutoring after that. But one day during lunch she came up to my table, where I was just chatting with my friends, and inserted herself into the conversation before leaving randomly. I heard a few days later that she was suspended for either having drugs or a knife in her backpack. I've got two. First one was when I was 15. I was walking past my school and about to cross the road when a trio of drunk women in their 40s or 50s started hassling me about how good I looked, pressing me in against the wall, and surrounded me, so that I couldn't get out, and holding me back while they copped feels. Not a fun experience. Especially when you can't even tell people about it, or how creeped out it's left you, because as a guy you should somehow be proud when women 3 times your age are grabbing your cock through your trousers against your will. The other one was about 4 years ago. I was 22 and asked a girl I'd met out. She seemed nice at first. Met her in a little cafe while I was waiting to meet some friends, and we got talking about Pokemon and some other stuff for 20 or 30 minutes before adding each other on Facebook. Only weird thing was that in that time she told me she'd been raped by her ex. I thought maybe she was just being open about it as a way of dealing with the trauma, so I let it slide and messaged her a bit later to see if she'd be interested in a date. She told me that she already had a boyfriend, but that she'd love to hang out as friends, which was fair enough, so I agreed to that, and we met up a few days later. She'd brought her boyfriend with her, which I expected. I got the sense he wasn't too comfortable with me, which I can understand, but what threw me was she also brought her ex. I can't 100% say it was the same ex she'd mentioned, but he really gave off that vibe with the way he talked and behaved around her. She kept on talking about dead babies and abortions obsessively as well. You couldn't change the subject at all. Creeped me the hell out, so I just sat there with a smile and acted civil while internally going, "Please don't kill me," and I haven't spoken to her since. I was accused of this. My husband and I moved, and we happened to buy in a neighborhood that adjoined the one my ex and his new wife bought. Weird. Many years and many children later we moved further away. Guess who lives across the street? It was mildly weird until his wife and I met at the mailboxes one day and talked. Now our kids are friends and ride bikes and play basketball and such. In elementary school there was a new Spanish girl who had a crush on me and would literally be non-stop staring at me and following me. Me and my friends tested it. In class they would look and see she'd be staring at me. In recess we went to the very far corner of the field and she followed. So I went back to the school wall and she followed. So I told the teachers and they finally got her to stop following me. She disappeared a few days later. Nobody knew where she went. She finally hit maximum level 4 sneak. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.